Welcome to the Buyer Enablement Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Feedy. I'm honored to have you back, as I always am. Anytime I have anybody listening to this podcast, I'm thrilled. But I think there's going to be a lot more people tuning into this episode than maybe some of my other episodes even, because I have a guest that if you're on LinkedIn, if you're in a customer-facing role, specifically sales, you know this guy. And he's going to be bringing a lot of value to you. I can promise you that. Before we even start this conversation, I know it because that's what he does all day, every day already, right? That's all this guy does. So Scott Ingram, welcome to the Buyer Enablement Podcast. Why don't you give everybody a really quick elevator pitch? Who are you? What's your background? Why are you somebody that even has this knowledge to give to people right now? Where did that knowledge come from?
Yeah, Josh, thanks for having me. I enjoy being here, and I love the title of your show. Buyer Enablement is such a great title. So my name's Scott Ingram. Most people know me as the host of the Sales Success Stories podcast, where for the last 4.5 years, I have interviewed, 118 quota-carrying sales professionals, but not any quota-carrying sales professionals. They're all either the number one top performer in their company, or I joke, I'm willing to settle for the top 1%. So every now and then I find somebody that's like number 3 on a team of 800, and I figure, that's close enough. That's pretty good. Yeah. So that's what takes up a lot of my time. But during the day, I myself am a quota-carrying sales professional. So I am learning real time, applying real time, a lot of the things that I've been learning. Sold over $1 million myself in Q1. So this stuff works.
It does work. And thank you for the compliment on the podcast name. Yeah, I was shocked that I was able to get that one and that nobody else had taken it yet. But at our business, we're trying to create a category right now. I think that the term buyer enablement is something that is just recently kind of creeping into the vocabulary at many organizations. But had you brought up that phrase a year ago, they'd say, what's that? Is that like sales enablement? Is that like sales acceleration? Like, what are you talking about here, right? But sales has changed so much. I mean, it's changed a lot in the last 5 years. It's changed a lot in the last 10 years. It's changed a ton, though, in the last 12 months. And things like the idea of focusing on our buyer and being more tailored and specific to our buyer's needs and being more digitally focused in those efforts, that's what buyer enablement is. And that's why, because of this whole pandemic, right, we had to start focusing on that. And now it's kind of becoming just a thing that people talk a lot about. Your background, I see you've been working at some large enterprise companies in your background as well, right? We have customers in that space as well. It's, even that sales cycle, look at how much that sales cycle has changed, right? So what are some of the big things that you want to help bring to light to some of the listeners of this podcast to really help them in their efforts in moving deals forward?
Yeah. Well, why don't we first kind of close off on the buyer enablement side? I just launched a new show. I'm producing this one. I'm not actually hosting this one myself, but we launched the Sales Tech podcast, which, just like buyer enablement, I thought, well, I actually maintain a list of every active sales podcast I can find, and there's something like 350 shows on that. You would think that there would have been a Sales Tech podcast, but there wasn't. So we made it. And Jake Dunlap was just on that show. And it's interesting because he was talking about exactly the space. He called it something different. I think he was talking about it in terms of buyer collaboration and that type of thing, which I think is a really good transition point to the question that you just asked, right? Mm-hmm. Because that to me is what is at the heart of all of this. Having done over 100 of these interviews with the ultra high performers, the best of the best, it has been so stereotype smashing. Even for me, right? Even for a guy who's been in sales for a really long time, and I thought I knew what it was, it has really showed me that the very best sales professionals are the ones who care the most, right? Who they really come from this servant leadership type of mindset. They're working to help their customers. It's a customer first approach, not a commission first type of approach. Because when you do a great job of serving your customers, you get lots of commissions. It's what comes after. But if you focus on that, I think it sends you down an inappropriate path. So that's really the biggest thing is you have to become just this incredible advocate, champion, collaborator with your customers to help them solve their issues, whether that's with your own solutions or others. I was literally just coming off a call with Chris Rudegrad at Sendoso, where I was able to introduce him to one of my Fortune 500 clients because their solution is going to serve that customer really well. Do I make any more money from that? Nope. But it's the right thing to do to take care of that customer. So that's the first thing I would say. The next thing I would say is I think a challenge that we've started to see in kind of the leadership, and I'm not going to say leadership because that's the wrong word, the management approach that we've seen in sales here recently is there's too much management by the numbers, management by the process. We're trying to put people in this like very specific box. And what I know about the best of the best is they have found a way to be the best version of themselves, to build kind of their own unique selling buyer collaboration process that again, just it fits them like a glove. It's just natural. It's who they are. They're not trying to be somebody else. They're not trying to run a whole bunch of scripts and drive people down a one size fits all process, right? Every opportunity, every sales process, buying process is different. And they have found the right way to just get comfortable in that. And I think the way that we get there as individual quota carrying sellers like myself, or as sales managers, sales leaders, is by truly enabling and coaching and giving people the space, right? I'm not saying throw out your sales process. The sales process still matters. There still needs to be structure to that. And in fact, we find that a lot in these conversations too, right? There is a process that people are following, but you got to find ways to insert more creativity and more of yourself, right? And more of what makes you as an individual special into that process. And that's where things really start to take off, right? Because at the end of the day, buying is this emotional, relational process, right? Even in B2B sales, where we like to think or wish that it was really rational. It's not at all. It really is this emotional type of thing. So there's a couple of key ideas. I can do this all day long, but I'll let you kind of insert some thoughts and drive the path from here.
This is why I wanted to have you on though, Scott. And so just anyone listening, from my previous episodes, I'm not real big on the pre-planning. I'm not real big on the pre-conversation. This is literally the first time I've ever met you, Scott. That's it. I've been following you on LinkedIn. I know the kind of content you put out there.
That doesn't feel real though, right? Because we have definitely interacted in a lot of different ways over the last couple of years. And my former boss is I'm pretty sure a good friend of yours.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like there's been interactions. This is the first real conversation we've been able to have though, right? And I don't like to do the pre-shows because I actually like to meet people and learn things about people in real time with my guests that listen to the show. Right? I think that that's the most genuine way to do that. But I know that you're a lot like me, right? If you get me going, if you wind me up, right? We can riff on these things all day. These are the things that we talk about, right? I'm not going to ask you to talk about anything that you don't already talk about all the time, right? But you're so right. Number one, what I wanted to highlight there, way back in the beginning of when you started talking there, buyer collaboration. What a great word. What a great phrase for us as sales professionals to just have locked and ingrained in our head that this is collaborative, right? I tell people all the time, stop calling yourself a salesperson, call yourself a strategist, right? And really consider yourself a strategist for your customer, right? Like put yourself in the position of being on their team and advising them to make their best decisions. When you mentioned making the introduction for Sendoso to one of your customers, yeah, that's not going to give you any money in your pocket today. It's going to give you money in your pocket tomorrow, though, because you are now a trusted advisor, and that is what people want to buy from today. They are trying to find trusted advisors. And the thing that I've noticed recently, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, being a trusted advisor, honestly, in my opinion, has never been more important because the thing I've been paying really close attention to, there's been a lot of sales professionals that have had a lot of complaints over the last 12 months about how challenging their job has become and how they don't understand how to be successful right now in this new environment that they're now being told they have to be successful in. And it's all this me, me, me. My whole life has changed. My whole business has changed. I don't know how to be successful here. And I really don't think enough people were sitting back and realizing that the customers that you are engaged with are also having to learn how to make a purchasing decision in a totally new way. And if we're being honest, it is way more stressful to put your neck on the line for somebody to make a decision to bring something into your organization, especially if it's a high ticket item thing that you literally are advocating for and bringing to a group of people in your company and saying, I've vetted it out, we're going to go with X, Y, and Z, and here's why, right? Well, if that doesn't work, it's your neck on the line, not the salesperson that sold it in, right? And so I think we really need to be thinking about the challenges that our buyers are faced with, because your background, Scott, with companies like Oracle, right? Those products that you were selling in, you might only sell that into a company. They might only make a purchasing decision maybe once every 2 years, right? Because these are going to be big ticket items that they're bringing in. So literally right now, there could be somebody listening to this show that's feeling frustrated that they don't know how to be effective in their sales efforts. They don't know how to move the needle. And what they're not considering is the fact that this might be the first time that the person they're selling to has made an important B2B purchasing decision in all of COVID. This is the first time. Can you imagine the stress on that? Is this something you've been looking into as well?
Well, for sure, and I think the answer was embedded in your lead up, right? It's we can't focus on ourselves. It's not about us, right? But our buyer is having all of the same types of challenges. They're not able to collaborate with their colleagues the way they used to be able to. They can't walk down the hallway and build consensus and do this type of work. So we've got to get in their heads and understand what they're up against and their communication challenges, and really just work to support all of that. Right. And again, it's being that strategist, being that collaborator, and helping them even just think through, okay, how are we going to get this done? I think when you can get to that level of personal, right? Because every decision, especially when it's a big one like this, right, where there's going to be lots of stakeholders, I'm putting my neck on the line. That's extraordinarily personal, right? You mess this up, like my job's at risk. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's recognize that risk. And let's help them through that entire process, right? We need to really come alongside them and think through, okay, what are the implications? What could go wrong? Let's lay it all out on the table. One of my very favorite questions to ask, and I've had to tweak this question, but now I'm getting to a point where I'm going back to the original because it's very, aspirational, forward-looking. I like to ask, look, Josh, if we were to get together a year from now and we're going to be in person, we're going to be celebrating, we're going to be raising a glass to celebrate our success, what specifically are we celebrating? And what did we have to overcome? What did we really have to accomplish to get there? And so I want them to sort of get into that place. But then we can also start to work backwards and think through, what do you think our biggest challenges were, right? If they were kind of look at it from that new perspective, this new idea. And I also want to understand, well, what does that mean for you personally, right? If we're celebrating that big win, are you trying to set yourself up for a promotion? Are you trying to get a raise? Are you trying to be in a position to lead other big projects like this? Maybe it's at a different company. If you can get them to open up at that level, that's incredible, right? And now we truly are their partner, right? Yeah. Now we truly are working through this together, and I'm helping them knock down the things that could get in their way, that could blow up not just their success, but obviously that's my project, right? So if they're not going to be successful, and one thing an important distinction I'm going to draw here is, I think in sales for way too long, we have focused so much on the close, right? I've got to close this deal. I've got to get the deal signed. I've got to get this autograph. The close is more of a beginning than it is an end.
Absolutely.
Right? That's where we're actually starting our real relationship together. And if you look at the way that most of these relationships work, it's very, very rare that you're going to sign a massive deal in your first deal. It usually comes 2 or 3 orders down the road because we still have to sort of establish that trust and that proof. Like, okay, Scott, you said you were going to be able to do all this stuff. Well, here's a little bit of budget. Here's a little bit of an order. Let's start to figure this out. And you need to show me that you actually can deliver on those things. Oh, you delivered on all that. Awesome. Okay, well, here's the next level. And then after that period of having built that type of trust, now they're introducing me to their colleagues in other companies. They're doing reference calls for me. And now we're talking about the 7-figure deal because there's that level of, yeah, we absolutely believe in this partnership. And we know that there's not a lot of risk here because they've delivered over and over and over again. All of that, that lifetime value of a customer like that is incumbent upon the sales professional.
Yeah. Okay. I love where you're going here, number one. And I think that there's something really important that I want to drill into and make sure people are paying attention to this. And I think this is resonating with me so much right now because my background is not in SaaS, okay? This is actually my first foray into SaaS when I launched my current business. Prior to that, I was working in creative services realm, in business development, primarily marketing services, and then I moved into custom digital products, okay? And so one of the things that was always a part of my life in that 18 years of my life was the postmortem, okay? So we would bring in the project, we would identify the goals, and then we would sit down with the customer and do a postmortem together. And we just figure out where were we successful, where were we not successful, did we meet up to all the expectations, what should we have done differently? And we would also have one with just internal teams so we could be even more honest with ourselves about what went right and what went wrong with that. And I do believe that that's actually something that I've pulled into my world in SaaS without even thinking about it. The second you brought that up, though, I do think this is incredibly important. I love the question, what are we going to be celebrating in 2 years? And the reason I love that question is keep in mind how important storytelling is in the modern sales environment. And if you're already trying to write that story right from day one, what you're really doing is you are writing the case study for when this is done. You are writing the testimonials for when this is done. You are writing the advocacy story for when this is done. You're basically prepping your customer to be your advocate, and you're spelling it out. This is success. Let's not forget ever that this is what we determined was success, because a lot of things get forgotten when deals are being landed. And if we're not detailed about documenting, this is success. This is the standard we're holding ourselves to because we're already planning that final party for when this happens because we did that, right? And if you get there and if it's documented, now, come on, this is just opening the door to that narrative, to that story, to all the things that are going to help you open even more doors to build that advocacy and then lead to what that ultimately leads to, which is what you were talking about, referrals, right? If you do right by a company, that company is going to bring you in to some additional deals. Am I getting this with where you're going on this?
Totally. And you reminded me of one of the most impactful episodes, just for me personally, that I've done in probably the last year and a half. So early in 2020, I interviewed a gentleman named Brandon Fluharty, and Brandon is a live person. He had sold in the previous 2 years, I think he did $11 million in annual recurring revenue in 2 years, right? Huge number, huge results, right? Anybody would dream of that. And one of the things that he started talking about that I just could not let go, I absolutely interrogated him about this and then began incorporating it into my own process in a variety of ways, is some of his executive leadership had come over from Amazon, and they brought with them this idea of kind of the memo style that Amazon operates on. And Brandon sort of adopted that and started using it in his deal process. And I took that concept and kind of continued to build upon it, because the opportunity is to essentially co-create the story with your customer. But perhaps most importantly, it's written down. Yeah. Because if you think about giving a presentation, you're right, building a deck, how many presentations do we all watch in a given day? And what is our retention of that? It's horrible, right? And then somebody wasn't there and you send them just the deck and they don't have any of the context. What if instead you had a written narrative of this is the story. This is what we're doing together. These are the outcomes we're driving at. This is how we're going to do it. This is how we're going to overcome some of the internal roadblocks and challenges, right? One of the things that I am always working on in my deals is making sure that we have really, really strong executive sponsorship. Because what I have learned the hard way over many, many years doing these types of deals is if you don't have a really strong executive champion in your deal, you're not going to be able to overcome just the stuff that happens in any of these opportunities, right? There's going to be politics. There's going to be just things that happen and get in the way. And if you don't have somebody with enough authority to help you get through that stuff, your risk profile and the chances that that project are going to fail are very, very high. So now if we have an aligning process where we have literally written the story, we have foretold what's going to happen and what our outcomes are and how we're going to get there and the buy-in that we need to get. It's also, they now co-own this entire thing. It's not just me telling them, hey, here's what you need to do. Here's how you need to do it. We figured out all of this stuff together. I'm able to now incorporate their language, right? They're able to incorporate the names of all of the different stakeholders that this project is going to touch and impact. It's all documented.
Yep.
Nobody else is doing this.
I love this road we're going down. I mean, I honestly, I just hope people are taking this in and really thinking about how they can apply this to their business. You're so true. You're so right when you say you need an internal champion. And I think that most people listening to this will absolutely, without question, understand that, right? They're hearing me repeat that and going, why are you repeating that? Duh. I'm repeating it because we need to equip that internal champion, because here's what I've seen a lot in my own personal career and people that I work with and just peers of mine. They will have an internal champion that loves them for whatever reason it is, right? And sometimes it's stupid reasons. Sometimes it's like, yeah, I want to work with Josh because he always knows the best restaurant to take me to, right? Sometimes that's the reason. Sometimes, though, it's I love Josh or I love Scott because when my leadership asks me how things are going, he or she has already given me what I needed to answer quickly and confidently so that I continue looking good to my superiors in my company and they know that I made the right decision, right? And this all plays into, I love the memo style, the co-create, right? Like really bringing your customer in to that day-to-day. Here's the success that we're going for. Here's how we're tracking to get there. Just really seeing yourself as a strategist and bringing them along on that journey. So powerful. You should really be thinking about that. Like, what kind of an internal champion have I created at this company? How powerful of a story am I giving them? Because if they were really put up against a wall, is it just because they like me as a person? Or do I actually have business metrics that I've been supplying this person with where they're going to be able to defend me against anybody because I have so well equipped them that they can't be pushed away from me? I love where this conversation's going. I really do. I think that there's a ton of value in that. With the co-create, have you ever met my friend James Carberry? Have you ever had him on a podcast? He's incredible, isn't he? Right? And his book, Content-based networking is incredible, right? And that's the whole co-create as well. I think you're taking it in a different angle than he did with his book, right? I mean, his book was more talking about let's be creating content with our ideal customer profile, involving them in the story. It's the same sort of idea, though. Let's be better involving them in the story. It doesn't mean you have to have a podcast. You just have to better involve them in the story of what's happening with this deal. Yeah, I love that, man. Is there anything else you want to add on that? Because I could riff on this part forever.
Well, I can triple down on James because I thank James frequently and often mention him in podcasts because content-based networking is my personal playbook. I'm like, thank you for writing this because now I don't have to.
Yes.
And if you look at the other book projects that I've done, or you look at anything that I do, honestly, and I joke, I'm the Tom Sawyer of authors, right? I've written multiple books, but I've never written more than 10% of any one of those books because I have my friends do it for me, right? And everybody benefits from that process, right? We elevate everybody in that effort. You know, for Relationship One, I host the Inspired Marketing podcast where we interview practitioners, many of whom are our customers, and if they're not, they're often our future customers. And it's the ultimate door opener. Yeah. And the reason why that is because it's all about them. Josh, if I reach out to you cold, we've never met before, we've never interacted, but I know you by reputation, and I say, Josh, I know you're doing some really incredible work. I've heard the stories. Would you be willing to come and share that story on our podcast? Nobody says no to that because it's all about you.
Yeah, exactly. People love that, right? So many people are looking for avenues to bring their message and their value to the world. And the only thing stopping them is their inability to find the time or the desire to learn the tools to do it themselves, right? And so if you can just quick bring them in and make it easy and say, all you got to do is just hit record or let me hit record and just show up and we're done. That's really, really powerful. I want to go back to something that you were talking about a while ago, 15 minutes ago at this point. You were talking about involving yourself in the process. I've been paying really close attention to this. I mean, my company is all about personalization. And so anytime I see anything about personalization, my ears perk up a little bit. And I think that I've said this on the podcast before, there's two different forms of personalization. There's personalizing the content around what the buyer needs, and there's infusing yourself into the sales process. So bringing yourself along and personally making yourself part of the process. I do think that people buy from people they like and trust. So I think it's incredibly important that you are bringing yourself into it. But where I want to go with this one is I'm seeing a lot of movement recently. I'm saying maybe within the last 4 months on LinkedIn. There are a handful of sales professionals that are really grabbing onto this content production bandwagon right now, that are really grabbing onto this personal branding thing. And they're taking it to a whole nother level, right? They're doing things that 6 months ago, marketing teams would have said, if a salesperson ever does that, they're fired, right? And they're doing it and they're getting away with it. And it always makes me think of the famous Gary Vee quote about firing your top salesperson, which so many people take out of context, and they just hear him say that. But, you know, it reminds me of the fact that there's certain things that just don't scale. There's certain things that certain rogue players do that bring in a ton of revenue and interest and eyeballs, but it doesn't scale, and it makes the rest of the team feel horrible. Have you been paying attention to this? Has this been getting your head spinning at all? And what are your thoughts along these lines?
So I need a little bit more context. So without naming names, or maybe you want to name names, give me a more concrete example of what you're seeing, because I'm not sure that I've seen the same thing. So one of the things that's been absolutely blowing me away recently has been Dually on LinkedIn, their strategy. Okay, they hired a person named Ryan Scalera, good friend of mine, great guy. Okay, and he started producing these music videos, right, to promote what they were doing at Dually. Now he's in a sales role there, and what he's doing is very much a marketing effort. That's what he's doing, right? And the marketing director at Dually is fully behind it because
that individual is liking the content and a part of producing some of the other stuff. And they just recently hired another individual that I met on Clubhouse that goes by the rapping salesperson, I believe, is the handle that he's given himself. And they produced another song, and they're just, the content production that they're doing is just going to a whole different environment than things that we've seen in the B2B space. And I think that my fear with stuff like that, if I'm being totally honest, is that is very tied to the individual, right? Like Ryan leaves that company, there's no more Ryan producing that type of content, right? He goes somewhere else, and if that's his flavor, and it is, right, then he's going to be producing more of that kind of content for the next company as well, and it serves him well, and it works well in opening doors. I'm just blown away by the length that some individuals are going to equip themselves to understand the tools, the technology, to start spending that amount of effort going after a lead. What he did specifically, he opened a door at Gravy. And the way he did that was to write a song to Gravy from Dooley right on his LinkedIn profile. And he got so many reactions. Gravy couldn't say, we don't want to have a meeting with you, right? This is contrary to what sales professionals were doing just 3 years ago, where a lot of us were turning into the super spammer and we were just sending out all kinds of crazy messages to all kinds of people that weren't personalized at all. On the flip side, fast forward 3 years, now you literally have people like Ryan that are sitting down for probably 3 days in a recording studio mastering a song that they're writing for one prospect, right? To open that one door. That is so different than what people were doing 3 years ago. And it's opening other doors for them as well. That's the genius in it, right? Because you're spreading that way. But I mean, are you watching this stuff?
Yeah, I love it. So, I mean, I think there's a couple other companies that are doing that really well. Gong is definitely one. Lead IQ is another. I mean, they've both been running these very similar plays for the last number of years. That to me, as long as it's not harming a brand, right? As long as it's not negative, it's all good stuff. To your point, it's opening new doors in a really creative way, but it's also driving visibility and making a lot of other doors, and people are kind of poking their heads out going, hey, what's going on over there? I'd be interested in talking about that. Sure, there's the risk that Ryan or any of these people move on, but that's part of the deal. Hopefully, I've been on both sides of this. I've worked for a company where, I mean, this is part of who I am. I run these types of efforts. The first book I ever wrote was in support of the company I was selling for. The only reason I did it was to sell more of that product, but they were freaked out that I was going to try and start consulting and speaking and doing these other things. And I'm like, look, speaking, sure, but I have friends who are professional speakers. I make 3 or 4 times more money than them. I'm only interested in selling more of your product. But we just had that disconnect and that misalignment, and they didn't understand it. And I needed to leave. Like, I couldn't deal because you're trying to turn off a part of who I am. And I found a company who like embraces it all. It's like, yeah, go do it. And so when you have the right type of relationship and the right type of dynamic, it's good and it's healthy. And there's always going to be a risk that one or the other of us needs to move on, right? The company can go in a different direction and I'm out, or I can go in a different direction and sorry, that's not going to work anymore. But hopefully what I have created for you to that point still holds value and is relevant and is useful. And again, let's go back to the buyer experience and the buyer perception.
Yes.
Would you rather have that and be subjected to that and something that's like really creative and really thought out and really personalized and relevant, or be seeing that versus regular, boring, freaking one-pager marketing slick stuff? Like, I don't want any more of that. I don't want the spam. I don't want all the stuff that we all hate. Our buyers hate too. So why would we encourage more of that and less of something that is more meaningful? I'm all about like tripling down on the more meaningful.
I love it. I 100% agree with you too. I want to make sure that that's clear to any listeners. I think what these companies are doing is the right move. And I think that we need to get over the fear of what if they leave us, right? Because it goes back to the old saying of like, okay, but what if they aren't effective and they never leave us, right? It's like, what's better? Let's let them be effective. But I think that the one part about it that's really got my head spinning is the whole idea of, okay, if you have one person doing something that no one else can do, and that person is able to generate a ton of revenue, the old idea was that person's not actually helping the company, right? And I personally think that that's wrong today, because you're going to have people that just naturally are inclined to do things like that, right? Like, I'm one of those people. I naturally like to produce content. I like to do this stuff, but I don't expect everybody in my organization to be doing this stuff. I would love it if more people did, but I don't expect everybody to do it, because if they're not comfortable doing it, it's not going to be genuine. It's not going to be good. Then they probably just shouldn't be doing it. And I think that the key thing to be focusing in on is, don't look at turning everyone in your organization into that one person or those two people that are creating a whole bunch of buzz, because that's the awareness stage. That's what that is. What happens after the awareness stage, that's the repeatable process, right? So I think there's still opportunities to hone everything in and to go way back to what you were saying. Sales is all about a structure, right? You said this in the very beginning. Like, there's always got to be some structure here. We have to have a repeatable process somewhere. We have to figure out how to do this at scale somewhere, but we do have to give people the freedom. That's the way sales works today. Your personal network on LinkedIn is going to be way bigger than the network that your company has. And if you're the conduit that brings the interest into the business, that should be celebrated. And if we lose you because you did such a good job building your personal brand that every company in America was reaching out to you saying, please come do that for me, then we should also celebrate that, because that person, I consider your personal brand like an NFT right now, right? And I'm not a big crypto person, but I love the idea of these NFTs, right? There's only one. There's only one. And there's only one of you. And your personal brand is, without question, your most valuable asset. And if your personal brand opens doors to new jobs or opens doors to new business, then you should be doubling down on that, right? And celebrating that you actually have the skill set to do those types of things. I just think the skills that a modern sales professional is required to have to be a top performer today has changed so much. And I do think that people that were uber successful 5 years ago, I do think that they can be, if they're not successful right now, I think they can be successful again, but I think that it takes a growth mindset. I think that it requires you to learn new skills and learn how to be, just like you were saying, more collaborative with your buyers in new ways, because you're not going to in the old ways anymore. Not all the old ways, right? The structure, the process, those things are all important, right? But the actual day-to-day communication, that needs to be collaborative in a different way than it ever had to be before. And we have to be effective in that way.
Well, none of this is static, right? Nothing holds still, right? The marketplace doesn't hold still. Your industry, the challenges that your customer, their organization, it's not like, okay, we're all in these roles and nothing ever changes. Are you kidding me? All my clients are always reorganizing, like everything. It's musical chairs all over the place. But I want to come back to the idea of kind of the ultra overperformance from a sales perspective, right? Because that can be positive, or it can be negative. And I told this story in detail in my first Sales Success Stories book, right? It was one of the very few stories I actually wrote myself. And I was talking about, it was Alex Shootman, who was the chief revenue officer at Eloqua at the time. He was most recently the CEO of Workfront, who just got acquired by Adobe not too long ago. And Alex had this thing. He actually drew this out for me in our very first interview, and my head exploded because it was so genius. He drew just a 2x2 grid. And on one axis, he wrote the letters GID, and he said that's for getting it done. And on the other axis, he wrote DIR, and that was for doing it right. Now, parts of this are obvious, and parts of it are super secret sauce in terms of the impact that it has. And this is the solution to the toxic sales culture, where you have somebody who is crushing it from a getting it done perspective, right? They are putting the largest amount of revenue on the board, but they're not doing it right.
Yeah.
They're bringing in toxic deals. They're stepping on other people to get there. They're hurting the organization in the way that they're doing it. So the way Alex kind of imaged these 4 boxes, in the top right-hand box, you're getting it done, you're doing it right. He drew a star in that box and he said, look, if you're there, you are a rock star. We need to be celebrating you. We need to be recognizing you and giving you all the rewards you deserve. If you're in the lower left box, you're not getting it done, you're not doing it right, well, you're failing. So he put an F in that box and is like, yeah, you're probably fired. This is sales after all. We do need you to produce, and we need to do that in the right way.
Yeah.
Then he moved to the bottom right box, which is, you're doing it right. You're doing all of the right things, but you're not getting it done. And he wrote a C in that box and said, you know what? We believe that good things happen to good people. We're going to coach you. We're going to work with you. And we're going to help you get to that place where you're in that star quadrant and you're in a great spot. But the secret to this whole model is in the top left-hand box, which is you're getting it done. You're bringing in the dollars, but you're not doing it right. He wrote the letter F twice.
Wow.
And said, if you're in this box, you will be fired faster.
Yep.
And that's the cure, right? Because what you talked about is somebody that's performing at a very high level, doing things that nobody else on the team can do, but they're positive. It's not hurting anybody. It's bringing in new business. It's good for the brand. It's good for the organization. That's awesome. We want that. What we don't want is somebody that's putting up huge numbers and just doing it in an awful, awful way. And that pollutes the entire rest of the organization, not just the sales team, because they're taking advantage of other people in the organization. They're taking advantage of other resources. They're probably irritating other executives. So let's get them out and make the rest of the team that much better, that much more productive. Like, that is the secret. Once I saw that, I was like, this is the greatest model to a great sales culture I've ever seen in my life. And it was.
No, it is. That's really, really powerful. And I recently had a guest on, Mo McKibben, and she works in customer success. And we riffed on this idea of what happens when you sell in a sloppy deal, right? And that's when you understand immediately just how devastating that is to a company, because think about when you deliver a mess into somebody's lap and you say, guess what? Your day is now going to be spent cleaning up this mess that I just landed, right? And, oh, I just landed another mess. That one's coming next week. And I got another couple messes in the pipeline. I think I'm going to push them over the top. We'll be bringing those messes to you. Pretty soon you have churn, not just from customers, but from employees, because they are sick to death of having to deal with this stuff. And this is exactly why we started this podcast. We need to focus on the buyer. And it's like you said at the beginning, we need to focus on the buyer and continue to focus on them when they've become the customer, once they've given us the money, right? We need to keep giving them powerful experiences every single day, because they're going to result in more revenue if we do it right. And if we do it wrong, they're going to result in churn. They're going to result in bad-mouthing us to our competitors when they move over there. They're going to result in less referral traffic, no referral traffic, because why would they refer anyone to a company that didn't do it right? And there's so many different things that play into this. It's not just in the sales environment, and we need to be setting up every team for success as well, so that those deals that we landed, they stay happy. That's why we wanted to create this podcast. That's why we focus on the buyers. Scott, this has been awesome having you on. We're almost at time here. So we need to make sure to spend a little time to make sure people know all the different things, all the different ways to engage, connect, interact with you. So let's give everybody those details here.
Well, I'll make it easy. If you go to only one thing, just go to top1.fm. So TOP, the number 1.fm. That'll get you most everywhere else. If you really want to go crazy, because it's a long list. I work on too many things. You can go to salessuccesseverything.com. We've tried to consolidate it there. And I'm also a huge LinkedIn fan. So do me this favor, connect with me on LinkedIn and just add a note and say, hey, I heard your conversation with Josh. Tell me the specific thing. Like, what did you hear that resonated with you the most? I would love to hear that. I'd love to be connected with you and start a conversation.
I love that. Yeah. And also, I think there's been a lot of great moments in this episode. I really do. If anybody has been inspired to change their process or to even speak with their company about refining their process based on some of these ideas, I'd love to hear that as well. Because I want to make sure that we're actually providing value. And just because something excites me and Scott doesn't mean it's going to excite a bunch of other people. But if it is, I want to know so we can double down on these themes. Scott, this has really been awesome having you on. I've wanted to have you as a guest on here for the longest time, so I'm glad we could actually make this happen. For everybody that listened, thanks again for joining. You can expect another episode from us roughly every 2 weeks. I try to stay on top of it, but sometimes they get a little spread out there. But you can find us wherever you get your podcast. We also put out the full video on our YouTube channel. Just go to the Sales Reach YouTube channel and look up the Buyer Enablement Podcast. You can find all of our previous episodes there. Make sure to hit the follow button so you get alerted when we do go live. And until next time, happy selling. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.